Hello and welcome to the BCU Wildcat Football Insider. I'm Lynn Thompson along with head football coach Gary Sims. As always, we join you weekly to give you the ins and outs of the BCU Wildcat football team. This year, the Cats ended up their portion of the non-conference schedule with the trip to Florida Atlantic University to fight the Owls of Lane Kiffin. The Cats lose at 49-28 in really what was not a blowout of any proportions, Coach. It was, in fact, a very good football game. You managed to unleash an offensive arsenal that may set the tone for the rest of the season. Your two quarterbacks did well. Arkevius Williams, 7 touchdowns in 2 games. This young man has really come into his own leading this Wildcat offense. And although you're not satisfied with the outcome, you were satisfied with the performance offensively.
I was. We did a lot of good things offensively on Saturday. I was pleased to see certain guys step up. You know, Jonathan Thomas, we had Quayshawn Bird again and Jimmy Robinson. You know, those guys stepped up and made a lot of plays. And we also had Kyrie Wallace step up on Saturday and have a couple big catches for us.
Coach, you go into a 21-0 deficit in the first quarter. It seemed like it's going to be a blowout, but then all of a sudden, something happens, and what we saw was a football team that refused to yield into defeat. They fought back. Second largest scoring output ever against an FBS university, and it gives you a lot to look forward to, doesn't it?
It does. You know, we again, like I said, we had a lot of guys being productive, and our sideline was just energetic the whole game. Mm-hmm. You know, those guys never gave up. They didn't believe that they were going to lose a football game, and that's the attitude you want to have going into any contest.
You come out of the game, Coach, virtually unscathed. I see Kennedy Nduku does get injured in the fourth quarter. His status is questionable for this week, but everybody else is fine, right?
Yeah, you know, and Kennedy had what they thought was a concussion. He went through the concussion protocol, and he'll be no contact for today and tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get him back on Wednesday.
Let's take a look at the highlights from the big ball game at FAU.
Yeah.
Snap to Williams. Play fakes, pressure, zips out to the right, throws. It's caught by John Thomas right near the first down marker. We'll see the spot. 1st and 10 BCU, first time the Cats move the sticks. Snap to Williams. Play fake to Bird, throws a dart, caught by John Thomas at the 45, drags the defender with him and has a first down to the 49. 4th and 5, Bethune-Cookman down 29-0, 13:37 second quarter. Snap, roll out near side for Williams, throws a deep pass towards the end zone, it's caught the 1, touchdown, maroon and gold! Has his 2nd receiving score of the year. Singletary the tailback, Robinson with the snap. Play fake, throws, caught by, dropped. Elliott Miller gets a hand in there to jar him loose. Snap to Robinson. Clean pocket, takes a deep pass down the right sideline, and a one-handed interception attempt by Kennedy Ndukwe, and he makes the pick. What a play by Kennedy Ndukwe, back behind him with his left hand, nestles the football just on top of the turf. SportsCenter top 10, Kennedy Ndukwe on the play behind him, reaches back with his left hand. Oh yeah, what happened to Cash? Shotgun Bird right, low snap. Counter draw near side to Bird. Bird at the 25, Bird at the 30, at the 35, breaks tackle at the 40. Cuts out of the 45, still going. Bird at midfield, spins at the 45, and down to the 43-yard line. Quayshawn Bird's doing it again. Harper motions for the near side, snap to Williams. Williams throws, open man, caught at the 37, at the 35, the 30. Inside the 20-yard line, Kyrie Wallace moves the sticks for the Cats to the 17. Snap, Williams fakes to Ismay, keeps the near side, now throws back at the end zone, and Kevon Mitchell muscles it in. Touchdown, maroon and gold.
RPO, run pass option. Great job by the Wildcats.
This snap to Arkevius. Sprints out of the pocket to the right side. Throws a deep pass for the right end zone. Jump ball, and it's caught by the maroon and gold. Touchdown, BCU. John Thomas snares it.
Great job, boy. I tell you, keeping starts throwing that football well tonight. He broke the tape, rolled to his right. He found John Thomas.
snap, play fakes, keeps to the near side, and wins the foot race. Touchdown, maroon and gold.
I tell you, he pulled it and kept it that time. Once he saw the alley, you can forget it. Katie bought a goal. Good night. Irene, he turned it and took it in.
Each team starts their journey on separate roads, but they all converge to one road to the championship. There will be revenge and redemption. There'll be an Aggie and Eagle standoff. There'll be Bulldogs and Bears colliding with Tigers and Spartans, Hornets fighting off Bison, and Wildcats rattling the Rattlers. The road has twists and turns, and when it ends, one thing is certain. Only one team will claim the title, MEAC champion.
The DNA of Bethune-Cookman comes from the heart of a great woman whose legacy lives on today in each and every Wildcat.
I leave you love. I leave you hope.
I leave you a thirst for education.
I leave you faith.
I leave you, finally, a responsibility to our young people.
Great leaders always leave something for others to follow.
What will you leave us?
Ready or not, here I come. You can't hide.
There's nowhere to hide. Nowhere to run. It's time to hunt.
Welcome back to the BCU Wildcat Football Insider. We're going to take a look inside the Wildcat offense this segment of the show. Coach, you managed to put up 28 points, which is the second most against an FBS opponent since the FIU game in 2013. Akevius Williams has thrown 7 touchdown passes. That's 2 more than his in 2 games. That's more than he threw for the entire career thus far. And also, we've managed to run the ball for a touchdown in the last 9 football games, Coach. You're beginning to see some consistency. Your offensive line managed to really play a very good football game against a quality opponent, and it gives you some optimism, doesn't it, going forward?
Yeah, it does. And, you know, we have a few new guys playing on the offensive line, and we knew it would take us a couple games to, you know, get them to gel together and for those guys to get their feet up under them and continue to learn how to play with each other.
Coach, one of the most important things that we haven't taken notice of, but now it's appropriate to bring it forward, we are virtually the least penalized team in the league at this point. That is a reversal of fortunes. Normally, we're near the bottom of the league in terms of penalties, but we've only committed 13 penalties in 3 games.
We have, and that's something, you know, that we've worked hard on, and, you know, I have to honestly take my hat off to my guys, to the team, because they've worked hard to stay disciplined and not have flags all over the place.
Only giving up 31 yards a game in penalties. That's one of the things that keeps drives alive, isn't it?
It is, and you know, we had a little bit of misfortune with that, you know, last year, killing drives on offense and extending drives on defense. So if we can stay away from the penalties, you know, for the remainder of the season, I think we'll have a lot of good things coming.
You started the football game again with David Israel taking the initial snaps, Coach. He was able to throw the ball extremely well, led the ball club for a while. Then you bring Akevius in. He gets the lion's share of the reps, but then David comes back in the 3rd and 4th quarter, and you're going to need those 2 guys for the remainder of the season, aren't you?
We are. We're going to need both guys, and you know, it's something that we've been used to around here. having a two-quarterback system. And I think right now it's working well. David is doing his part. He's handling the plays that he can handle. And then Akivas is coming in and doing his job.
We managed to run the ball for about 130 yards on the night, Coach. For those people who might look at the stats and say that you've got to run the ball more effectively, what we mentioned last week and we continue to mention is that you're able to throw the football out of the backfield and using toss sweeps and the like. Some of those are counted as forward passes. So you're getting what you want to get out of your football team in terms of a run production?
We are, and we're not going to be a football team that's going to have 300 yards rushing every game. I mean, that right now that's not our identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned, I think our first show we mentioned that if we have to run the ball to win the game, we're going to do that. If we have to throw it to win the game, we're going to do that. We're going to do whatever it calls for us to do to win football games. And right now, throwing the ball is helping us move the ball up and down the football field.
6 different running backs touched the ball this past Saturday night, but 2 of them in particular were not traditionally known as running backs, and that's the tandem from Palm Coast, Jimmy Robinson and, of course, Keyshawn Bird. Let's talk about it.
Well, you have 2 special guys, Keyshawn Bird and Jimmy Robinson. Keyshawn played a little bit of receiver for us last year, did a great job as a true freshman. His natural position is running back, and we moved him back there this year. And he's done a great job for us in special teams and as a running back. And Jimmy transferred in last year from Mercer, and he sat out last season. And he's here now and doing a great job at receiver. He can play inside and outside, and he's making a lot of explosive plays for us.
Coach, you got to give a little credit to the offensive line because Akivas and both David were actually able to evade the pressure when it was applied by FAU. You put them on the edges running the ball, and they did both incredible jobs.
They did, and again, I have to really take my hat off to Coach Romano, Coach Pearson for working with those guys, and they're continuing to push our offensive line, and the offensive line, they're responding.
They've responded well, and one of the things that we saw, the score was 36-14 at half, Coach. You knew that we could move the football. We were able to apply some defensive pressure, and when we come back in just a moment, we'll dive into the defensive performance. We'll find out who you can depend on for the next couple of weeks and how well that interior front did for the Wildcats. We'll be back to talk about defense and some special teams after these words.
Each team starts their journey on separate roads, but they all converge to one road to the championship. There will be revenge and redemption. There'll be an Aggie and Eagle standoff. There'll be Bulldogs and Bears colliding with Tigers and Spartans. Hornets fighting off Bison and Wildcats rattling the Rattlers. The road has twists and turns, and when it ends, one thing is certain. Only one team will claim the title, MEAC champion.
The DNA of Bethune-Cookman comes from the heart of a great woman whose legacy lives on today in each and every Wildcat.
I leave you love. I leave you hope.
I leave you a thirst for education.
I leave you faith.
I leave you, finally, a responsibility to our young people.
Great leaders always leave something for others to follow.
What will you leave us?
Ready or not, here I come. You can't hide.
There's nowhere to hide. Nowhere to run. It's time to hunt
Welcome back to the BCU Wildcat Football Insider. I'm Lynn Thompson. Terry Sims, our head coach, joins us. We're wrapping up talking about the defensive output of the football game at Florida Atlantic University this past Saturday. The Cats go out of conference to play an FBS opponent. Lane Kiffin's Owls, coach, were everything we expected them to be. We knew that they were going to try to establish the run, and they did. A bigger, stronger unit with more players. They rushed for over 300 yards, but we did not give up the big yardage in crucial situations like we did 2 years ago.
No, we didn't, and you know that's I think a tribute to our defense and our defensive staff for putting the plan together. I mean, they have a lot of explosive guys on offense, and they got their yards. I mean, you know, they have two running backs that are really good, that they're patient, and they have an offensive line that can create some holes, and you don't even want to get started talking about the skill guys they have on the perimeter. You know, thinking about the receivers they have, they run a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of different things with those guys to give them the ball out in space.
Coach, they had a variety of different looks on a couple of third down conversions and fourth down conversions. Coach, they did some innovative stuff with the tight end. They put him in motion, they went away and then came back to him a couple of times. Some real bright play calling, and that's what you would expect out of Lane Kiffin and his offensive unit.
Yeah, they did. You know, they had two really good tight end H-back guys, and they did a lot of good things with them. You know, with the slide route and getting them out in the flat, and you know, getting those guys the ball and allowing them to turn up. And they have big bodies and they're athletic. So they were able to get, you know, a few yards after the catch.
Most of the tackling was done on this game by your linebackers and your free safeties, Coach. You like the linebackers doing that, but when your two safeties are leading the team in tackles on a given night, that lets you know the defense is being stretched.
It is, and you know, we had Marquise Hendricks, who, you know, he had a few tackles for us, which you always look for Marquise to come in and make some tackles. Marcus Ford had another sack. Then you had Devontae Lawrence and Joseph Johnson at the safety spot that had a few tackles. And Jamari Laguerre, one of our corners, he had some tackles on the jet sweeps, which that's his play to make.
Right.
And they made a few great yards, a few positive yards off those, but Jamari came up when his number was called and made the plays.
Two big interceptions on the night for your secondary.
It was. You know, Kennedy Ndukwe had a great interception on the sideline, and Jamari Laguerre, you know, he wants us to call him Bam. That's his nickname from high school down in Miami, but he had a key interception late in the game.
Coach, and you went into this game shorthanded. Your secondary coach, Terry Williams, and we want to lift Terry Williams and his family up in prayer. Terry lost his mother right before game time. One of the great things is that we were in South Florida.
Right. We were there, and you know, he had an opportunity actually to go down a day before. He was recruiting, and he was able to spend some time with her in the hospital. You know, you never want to get that call. I received that call around this time, you know, myself a few years ago. So I do understand, you know, what he's going through right now, and he's with his family now, and we're going to support him in every way possible.
We asked the Wildcat Nation to keep Terry Williams and the family in prayers. Those of you who know him, make sure you reach out to him and show him some love. Coach, you were able to for the third straight game, play a lot of players.
We were, and that's just you know, one of the advantages of playing non-conference games, and a big advantage for playing a non-conference game that's so close.
Right.
So you can get a bunch of guys dressed, and you know, get a lot of guys on the field and get some film on them.
You're absolutely right. Let's talk about special teams for the last minute, Coach. Giovanni continues to punt the ball effectively for us. And one of the things that we want to make sure that we understand that the defensive unit impresses upon him is that the better the job you do, the better position you put us in.
Correct. And you know, Giovanni is really understanding that right now. He's doing a great job of putting us in positive field position for our defense. You know, our defense is starting with the long field. The opposing team's offenses are not starting on our side of the 50. And, you know, that's a big plus for us. It allows us an opportunity to, you know, not have our backs against the wall when our defense takes the field.
We haven't managed to give up a big play on special teams, Coach, in crucial situations. We're kicking the ball well off of kickoffs. We haven't managed to break one either on a return.
We haven't, you know, we broke one last week, but you know, we have not had the number of kickoffs or kickoff returns or punts and punt returns to break as we have wished. You know, Coach Larkins puts a lot of work into this, and our punt return, our kickoff return units, we have capable guys, you know, to do that. We just have to make sure that we continue to press forward. And I think in the coming weeks, you'll see our special teams explode a little bit, and we'll get some points on the board from that.
Well, we'll be back in just a few moments, and we'll turn our attention to this week's MEAC season opener, and it's going to happen in the Circle City Classic in Indianapolis, Indiana. The Cats looking for revenge against the Bison of Howard University. Back in just a few moments. Welcome back to the BCU Wildcat Football Insider. I'm Lynn Thompson along with Terry Sims. We're wrapping up the discussion about the big game at Florida Atlantic University. The Cats go into FBS ball this past weekend. They lose at 49-28, and really a good performance offensively. And Coach, 3 out of the 4 quarters you played against FAU, you were able to feel good about your defense as well.
I was, and you know, we had a slow start, and that's something that we have to, you know, work a little harder to not do, but I was pleased with their effort. You know, after going back and watching the film, it's never as bad as you think it is on game night. And after watching the film, we had a lot of guys on defense playing well. You know, we just had 2 or 3 situations where we allowed them to make some positive plays.
Coach, around the league this past weekend, for the first time that I can remember, folks were actually evacuating, leaving, running away from Hurricane Florence to Florida. And as a result, several of the MEAC games were canceled. We'll talk about those in a minute, but those that were played, FAMU loses a heartbreaker at the end at home against Jackson State, 18-16. Morgan State, a chance to win it on the road at the University of Albany in New York. They lose it 30-27 in the waning minutes of that ball game. And Delaware State steps up against the FBS competition, shut out 68-0. Games that were canceled. You had North Carolina Central hosting South Carolina State. That's been postponed to the end of the year. You also had Norfolk State. You had Howard, as a matter of fact, against Savannah State. That game has been postponed to the end of the year, and that would have given you good insight into this week's opponent. Let's talk about that.
Well, you know, you hate to have games canceled for weather, but you know, safety's first. I would have loved to you know, have Howard and Savannah State play, because I think now you get, a conference opponent,
right?
And you kind of see how those guys match up with the conference opponent. But we just have to go off the 2 games that we have, which are Howard U and Kent State, and prepare from them.
Last year's football game was a great football game. We led it the entire game at Howard, lose it in the last minute on a disputed call. Nonetheless, we take that loss and we have to move on. But they've got a very exciting offensive unit led by a quarterback that is getting national notoriety.
Correct. Kalen is a fabulous athlete. He's an outstanding athlete. He does a lot of good things with the football, and he has a good supporting cast. He has a couple of big wide outs that he can get the ball to, and he has some very, very capable running backs that he can turn around and hand the ball off to.
Mike London is a great football coach with experience and success on every level of college football. And Kalen Newton, the younger brother of Cam Newton, coach, came on like gangbusters last year as a freshman and continues already to put up good numbers. They are, in fact, the league's top-ranked passing offense. And an offensive unit last year that really depended upon the run for most of the season.
They did. They used the run to set up the pass, which a lot of teams do last year. And this year, I think they're kind of doing the same thing we're doing. They're using the pass to set the run up. And it's really working out for them so far. They didn't come out on top in either of the first 2 football games, but when you watch them on film, you can see that they are a productive offense.
Well, it's going to be homecoming of sorts for several of the Wildcat faithful in the Alumni Association, but none more than our big All-American Dwayne Brown, Coach.
Dwayne gets a chance to go home, and he's had this one circled on the calendar for a little while, and he's been talking about just being able to go back home for the first time, play in front of his family, his friends, and just get an opportunity to be back in Indianapolis. And we also have Jerry Beauchamp, who's actually from that area, has family in that area. So both of those guys will get an opportunity to go back and play in front of family.
Well, it's family time as we go into the MEAC family competition for the Celebration Bowl berth. It's the Cats and the Bison coming up this Saturday, the Circle City Classic. If you can't join us, it's going to be on national TV. If you're busy, catch us on the CatEye Network. For Terry Sims, I'm Lynn Thompson. We'll see you in Indianapolis.
We just want to make sure that we're not making the same mistakes. We want to come in, we want to watch the tape, correct the mistakes, and not have the same mistakes when we play the next football game.